What is up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this past Friday we got our first big 2024 video game release. The game I'm referring to, of course, is the early access release of Palworld, which, of course, since I'm making this video, I've played it and I want to talk about it. So without further ado, let's rock. But before we get started, there are a couple of disclaimers I want to throw out real quick. The first being, this game is in early access. Also, I've only played it for about little less than 20 hours. Now that playtime has a lot to do with the game itself. It's kind of the game's fault, but we'll get to that later. Because of those two things, this video is only going to be my first impressions. Because it's in early access and it just dropped in early access, I don't feel good about giving this my full review, because a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, especially the negative stuff, I expected they're going to try to clean up. And finally, there is a multiplayer aspect to Palworld, but as I usually do, I only played this game single player, so I can only discuss how I played the game. So obviously there will be no multiplayer discussion in this video. But now that I've gotten those disclaimers out of the way, let's get to the rest of the video. Palworld is a third-person open world survival game where you play as a human avatar that is customizable in what I consider a very basic create a character system, where you just end up looking like the free skin from Fortnite but cartoonishly buffed for some reason. Once your avatar is created, players are released on islands filled with Pokemon-like companions known as pals. Your survival hinges on your ability to craft essential tools, gather crucial materials, and build a formidable base. Pals can be captured and tasked with jobs at your base or set in your party to help you battle. Palworld was released in early access and game preview on January 19th, 2024. It was developed and published by Pocket Pair, and it was released on PC and all Xboxes, including Xbox One, Series S and X. I played it day one Game Pass on my Series S. From the moment that this game was revealed, everybody was calling this game, myself included. I was definitely guilty of this as well. They dubbed this game Pokemon with guns. That's all you heard about Palworld, was it was just a Pokemon clone, but they had guns. And that was obviously done on purpose. Pocket Pair, the developers of this game, obviously understood that video games are a very saturated market. It is really hard to get and keep gamers' attention. And that trailer with the guns definitely got people's attention. But now that I've played Palworld, to call this game just Pokemon with guns does it a huge disservice. I was surprised how fun and addicting this game is. There's a shocking amount of depth to Palworld. Honestly, as a Pokemon fan, there are things in Palworld that I would love to see in the new Pokemon game, and I barely done anything with the guns. The guns part of Pokemon with guns is the least interesting part as far as I'm concerned. I had way more fun just collecting pals and doing the base building stuff, sort of kind of behind the scenes. When I do a review or first impressions video like this, my plan is, okay, I'm gonna play the game a few hours after I get off work on Friday. I didn't get to play Palworld as much on Friday than I would have liked, because the game would crash every 30 minutes, which obviously was pretty frustrating. To their credit, it only crashed once since, so maybe that was just a launch night problem. Well, play the game a few hours on Friday and then get up early on Saturday, and that's all I do on Saturday when I'm about to do a review. And honestly, it was getting late on Saturday while I was playing Palworld before I realized I had only really fucked around with the farming and upgrading the base part of the game. And I kind of had to force myself, because I was having so much fun with that aspect of the game. I kind of had to force myself to do some other stuff in the game just so I would have way more knowledge about it for this video. But the base building and farming stuff is really, really fun. I spent an embarrassing amount of time designing and redecorating my base in Palworld. It reminded me a lot of how obsessed I got in Animal Crossing with making my house look as cool as possible. It has a very similar vibe to it. Eventually you can upgrade and learn new technology where you can literally get different decorations like shelves and house plants and so on and so forth. And I got really obsessed with decorating my base. I know that sounds weird, but again, I got really obsessed with it in Animal Crossing, and I don't know, I just have that part of me that wants to make my base look as cool as possible. Unfortunately, a lot of time was also spent dismantling things because as of right now, there's no way to move things once you place them in your base, or at least I couldn't figure out how to do it. If there is a way that you know of, let me know in the comments down below. You'll save me a lot of time in the future, but as of right now, I don't think there's a way to do it. So I was literally, anytime I wanted to move anything or redecorate or anything like that, or add on to my base, I had to dismantle things and then rebuild them. And it was really, really frustrating. Speaking of Animal Crossing, Palworld also makes you wait while you manually craft things. I'll be honest, I watched a lot of YouTube videos on my second monitor, bored while I waited for the crafting to be done. To make matters worse, it also makes you hit the button again to acquire the thing that you just crafted after you're done crafting it. I can't tell you how many times I forgot to do that and just assumed the thing I just crafted was already in my inventory when it definitely was not. Now, this acquiring thing makes more sense once you have your base set up and you have a lot of pals doing things for you at your base, because most of the time you won't be crafting the items yourself. You will be having the pals do it for you. And I love that you can set up tasks for your pals to do at your base. It's almost like you have a little Pokemon army to do your bidding for you. Each pal has its own specialty based on their pal type. For example, water pals can water your plantation while others can build things for you. Now, some pals do have multiple things that they can do. Unfortunately, the pal AI is pretty bad. It's almost like the pals that have the multiple things have ADHD. They'll help you build something for like a split second and then run off and do another task for a second, and it's just absolute chaos. Therefore, I found myself really only using the pals that could only do one thing. Yeah, it definitely limited what I could do at my base, but at least I knew that one thing was getting done all the time and I didn't have to worry about them running off doing God knows what. I'd also have to pick up my pals sometimes because they would complain about being hungry, which is weird because I have containers with food in them. That's another thing that I really enjoyed about this game, that eventually your base almost becomes self-sustaining because the pals will grow stuff for you and then they'll put it in the container that they'll eventually eat from. So it's like they're working for their own dinner essentially. And I would get frustrated because I'd be like, why are you complaining about being hungry? I'm providing food. Well, you're kind of providing it, but you know what I mean? Like, there's food for you to eat. Well, it turns out I get to them and it's because they would be like stuck on a rock or something, and I'd have to pick them up and toss them over where the food is for them to eat. So the AI for the pals, it's not smart. They ain't smart creatures. Not only do you have to manage your pals' hunger and health, you also have to keep your base safe because there are base raids in Palworld. Now, they could either be wild pals or they could be these bandits that come and raid your base. Unfortunately, they're not too difficult. Honestly, after my first raid, I realized, oh, these really aren't that big of a deal. And I would just throw out a pal, have them deal with it, and kind of carry on with what I'm doing. I'm glad that they're in the game because they're kind of a breath of fresh air. There's something else to do in the game, but they're not difficult at all. I hope that they eventually build on these and make them way more interesting, because right now they're more annoying than anything else. In addition to the raids, there are also boss battles in Palworld, which, to their credit, are more difficult than the raids. However, I wish there was a little bit more variety with the boss battles. It honestly is just, oh, we're just fighting another giant pal. And as long as your party is strong and you understand how to do it, you'll be fine. They are more difficult than the raids, but again, that's not setting the bar super high. However, my biggest issue with this game is just how it looks. There's no way around it. The environment just looks bad. Remember how upset people were at the first Halo Infinite gameplay trailer? Well, that's how this game just looks. Everything looks flat. There's no detail in the environment, which is a bummer because it's pretty clear that developers took time to design some really cool areas. You're on a bunch of islands, so there's a bunch of bodies of water around you. There's a lot of cool mountains to climb. There are these old ruins that you come across. So there's a lot of cool things in the environment. Unfortunately, they just haven't given it the TLC necessary to make those areas look as good as they could. It certainly doesn't help that there's a lot of rendering right in front of you. You'll be on top of one of those mountains kind of looking out into the environment and it'll look completely empty. You'll start to glide down there and things will just pop up around you. Now, again, it is in early access, so hopefully they polish it, they add to it. I'm definitely more willing to forgive this game for visuals, mostly because it's just fun otherwise, but also because it's not a full price game. To their credit, Palworld looks just as good as the most recent Pokemon game, but unfortunately that isn't setting a very high bar to clear. Speaking of Pokemon, I kind of buried the lead on purpose. It's insane to me how cut and paste the pals are from Pokemon. It's almost like they're asking Nintendo to sue them, which is a bold strategy because Nintendo is known for taking legal action against people. So it wouldn't be surprising at all if we found out that Pocket Pair got sued. But it's not just Pokemon. There's a lot of Breath of the Wild in Palworld as well, even to the point where some of the font and sound design feel ripped directly from Zelda. It's crazy. All right, so kind of wrapping up, I know that I spent a good chunk of this video kind of shitting on this game, even though I did say at the beginning I really enjoyed Palworld, but it is your stereotypical early access game. There are a lot of things that they need to work on, but for the most part, I was really happy with how fun this game was. Yes, there are plenty of things that they can work on, that they can polish, but there's a lot of potential. I honestly assumed that I would just spend this weekend playing this game, kind of trashing it a little bit, kind of laughing at it. It's Pokemon with guns, all that stuff, and then never remember or think about this game again. But I'm gonna play it pretty much as soon as I'm done editing this video because it's a lot of fun. It's very addicting. I'm really enjoying it, even though again there were plenty of things that I pointed out that they need to work on. But as always, those are just my thoughts on Palworld. I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, as the kids say. Consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, ding that bell. I put out weekly gaming related content, so if you enjoy that type of content, which you obviously do because you made it this far in the video, definitely consider subscribing and dinging that bell. But until next video, take it easy. What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this is my boy Yoshi, aka Kitty Boy, and we were just talking and we agree that since you made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe. You wouldn't want to disappoint Kitty Boy, would you?